Now, so I think last time we finished up until the verse number 17. Inshallah, we'll start with verse 18. And as I said, because I'm not feeling so well, we will make a very short class. Maybe 3 verses, maybe. Let's see, inshallah. جيد. So we'll start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا. So that's the verse. So the translation of Hilali, it says, the day when the trumpet will be blown and you shall come forth in crowds. And then he added some annotations, groups after groups, based on Tafsir Tabari. And Abdul Halim, he says, a day when the trumpet will sound and you will come forward in crowds. We'll do word for word and we'll see, inshallah, what we can understand from our own analysis perspective. So the first word we have yom, and we had this word many times already, right? We know it means day. We'll talk about the grammatical aspect, why it has a fatha and all sorts of things later, after we go word for word. The next word we have yunfahu. Okay, yunfahu. What does it mean? It comes from the verb nafakha. Okay, nafakha yanfukhu. Yanfukhu. Which means to blow, okay, to blow or to breathe into something. And that's why Allah uses this word when He says about, blowing the ruh into, human being or something. So this is the word that will be used. Okay, so its standard meaning is to blow or to breathe into. So, but this is the past tense nafakha, and the present tense is yanfukhu with the dhamma here. But what form we have here is yunfakhu. As you can see, the present tense is yanfukhu, but here it says yunfakhu. So, what is this form? It has a little bit different, haraka. This form is actually a passive voice, the passive form of this verb in the present tense. Just like in English, we have passive voice. We say do. Do is the present tense. Did is the past tense. But the passive form, it was done. It was done. So passive form is that we don't mention the person who did the action. We just want to say something was done. So we are trying to omit the doer, the subject of the verb. So in Arabic, the passive form is exactly the same thing. When you want to mention something, the action, but you don't want to mention who did it. In Arabic, we call mabni lil majhul. There's another long name for this, which is fa'il lima lam yusamma fa'iluhu. Lima lam yusamma fa'iluhu. So this is a bigger term, meanings a verb whose doer has not been mentioned. Okay, so a little bit more descriptive term. But this is more common. Why do they use this one versus that one? Here, if you translate, the meaning is you are talking about a verb whose doer is unknown. Majhul means unknown. Like it is not known who performed the action. You say that the door was opened. You don't know who opened it, but you're just trying to say the door was opened. So the term majhul means that the door is unknown. But the reason why they use the other term, lima lam yusamma fa'iluhu, that a verb whose door is not mentioned instead of saying unknown, is because when they use the Quran, they get into a problem. We get into problem because we cannot say that the door is unknown, and Allah knows who did everything. So that's why they don't like to use this term only for that purpose. Otherwise, this is a good term. So we will use this term. I just wanted to make sure that you understand why they said. And as long as we know that Allah knows everything, so our intention is not to say that Allah is unaware of the doer. Our intention is to just use the term, the grammatical term. Now, so in English, in English we also have three types, do, did, and done. Eat, ate, and eaten. That eaten is the mabni lil majhul, the passive form. Okay, so in Arabic we also have a different form. But in Arabic, we use a technique, a form in order to make the verb into a passive form, which is pretty simple, honestly. So it depends on what verb you want to make passive. Do you want the present tense or do you want the past tense? What we have here is the present tense. So we'll work with the present tense first. Interestingly, subhanAllah, the next verse actually it uses the past tense. So we will leave the past tense for that. So the present tense of this verb we have yanfukhu, yanfukhu, yanfukhu. The standard verb is called mabni lil ma'lum. So that means the verb is for a doer that is known. So here, who's the doer? Doer is huwa. It means he blows. He blows or he breathes into something. So now if we want to say that something is being blown, but we're not mentioning who did it, meaning we're trying to use the passive form, we have to do a few things. For example, if I say yanfukhu Muhammadun, so that means Muhammad is blowing. Okay? In passive form, first thing is what do? You remove the doer. So that's the whole point. You don't want to mention the doer. And then you change the verb form into a mabni lil majhul, which is pretty simple, as I mentioned to you. For all of these verbs, we don't touch the ending. Okay, ending stays as it is. For the present tense verb, the ending has significant because the present tense verb is mu'rab. The ending will change to dhamma, fatha, or sukun. So this is for the grammar. So we don't touch that. What we do is we work from here. The first thing is mabnil majhul always have a dhamma in the first one. Always have a dhamma. Okay, so we make this one into a dhamma. The best way for the present tense to think about, you make rule number one, make the first letter, which is the letter of mudare, into a dhamma, and all letter with haraka. So any letter we have with haraka, remember, sukun is not a haraka. Sukun means that there is no haraka. Okay, so fatha is a haraka, dhamma is a haraka, kasra is a haraka, sukun is not haraka. So we have to make all the letters with haraka before the last one. I told you we don't touch the last one into a fatha. Okay, so make the first one into dhamma, and any other letters that you have in between the first one and the last one, just give them a fatha, except for the sukun, because sukun is not haraka. So what happens? So if we follow this through, so it will have, this one will get into Dhamma, and we have one haraka only. This is not haraka, so we'll make this one into a fatha. So we'll have yunfakhu. Yunfakhu. Does it make same thing as this one? Yes, yunfakhu. So we get into this form. Okay, so that means this is the passive form. So here Allah is not mentioning who is blowing, but we know from the other places and from the hadith that Israfil will blow. And we'll know what blowing we're talking about if we read the next part. So this is clear. So we have yunfaqo. So it will be blown. So we have this passive tone. And who is blowing? We don't know. Allah's not mentioning it here. We know. Allah knows, right? But here in the verse, Allah is not mentioning. He's focusing on the event, not who is doing the blowing. So then we have fisur. We know the fisur. Sur is what? Sur is trumpet. It's written here, trumpet. Okay. Or it can also mean horn. The blowing horn. In Arabic, we call book. Okay, so this part we don't know who, but we're saying the horn will be blown. Then we have fayatuna afwaja. We have the particle fa. We'll talk about the fa. And then we have a verb, and it comes from the verb ata. Okay, yati. Ata yati means to come. Okay, to come. And we have seen this form with the plural form that when we add waw and noon, then it becomes plural. But you have to see it's making plural to which pronoun. So you have to cut this one off and look at this verb. You have ta'tu. We don't have ya'tu. We have ta'tu. So that means you come. And by adding waw noon, what we're saying is you plural. Okay, this waw noon will make this pronoun into a plural. فهمتم? Now, this is, pronoun conjugation, subhanallah. I don't know why I repeat them because a lot of people, they don't properly memorize them, subhanallah. But it's a very important and very fundamental. Yeah, so you will come forth, meaning Allah is talking about us, human being. We will come. We will come. And then we have afwaja. What is afwaja? It comes from the word fauj. Faujun. Fauj is a singular. This is a plural. Fauj means group. Because a normal group we have fariq, but here Allah is using the fauj so that you can see that it will be kind of like systematic. Row by row, a group of people are coming. So group itself is a plural. People, you can have a group with one person, but then Allah is using the plural of the groups. So now you can imagine that a lot of people are coming. That's why we get the word crowds. فهمتم? Even if you mentioned in groups, that would be fine. Uh, you see here, he mentioned groups after groups. From this word to word meaning, what do we get? We're saying the day when the trumpet will be blown. So we have the passive tone, trumpet will be blown. You all will come in crowds, marching in groups after groups. So now let's see what we have here. So why do we have a fatah here? The yom. Remember, anytime a noun doesn't have a tanween, noun means indefinite noun. Okay, indefinite noun like kitab. These are indefinite noun. Yom. So if because indefinite noun should be a tanween, kitabun, yawmun. If it doesn't have tanween, two things might be there. Number one, either alif lam, because the alif lam will remove tanween. And number two is that this is the first word of mudaf, idafa. So this would be mudaf. Okay? Because we learned that a first word of idafa, mudaf, never takes a tanween. So here we don't have a tanween. We will find out why it is fatha instead of dhamma. But even if it is fatha, it should be, with tanween. Then our best guess is that this is a part of idafa. This is part of idafa. So that means this whole thing is idafa. So this is your mudaf, this is your mudaf ilayhi. Now, when you study idafa, we always talk about that idafa comprise of two nouns. Kitabullahi, kitab and Allah, two nouns. But the rule of being noun is for the mudaf is strong. That means mudaf must be a noun. Mudaf must be a noun. But mudaf ilayhi, it can be noun, which is the most of the time, but it can also be an expression that takes in a place of a noun. Even in English, if I say, this is the book of someone who gave me yesterday, or someone who I met yesterday, or the author who I prefer. You see, after of, you're literally saying a sentence. You're not giving a one word, you're saying a complete sentence. So this is what we have here, right? So we have a complete sentence after that. Because it's verb or sentence, we cannot say that the verb is mudaf ilayhi. So it has to be in the place of mudaf ilayhi. That means this whole thing would be in a place of jar state. But then the question is, why do we have a fatah here? Hmm? This is a tricky one. You will not understand because for this one, you have to go back to the previous one. If we don't have any previous context, one of the best guess would be that this is ظرف, because when you have a time, the ظرف takes a fatha. But this is not the case here. This is actually is connected to here. This is connected to the previous verse. Remember, in the previous verse, we say, Inna yawmal fasli kana miqata. That verily the day of judgment or day of decision is in appointed time. Then Allah says, Yawma yunfakhu fi sur. Then Allah continues talking about that day. So here Allah refers that, He introduced the day of judgment, that it is appointed time. Then He start talking about the day. So in Arabic, we call this is badal. So here from the grammatical perspective, this yawma yunfakhu, it is same thing as yawm al-fasl. We are talking about exactly the same day. So this is an exchange. It is a badal. Badal is a very interesting concept. I'm not sure how much I can explain here. Badal basically means exchange. So for example, if I say, I saw your brother, then I say Muhammad. So your brother, when I say I saw your brother, he is Muhammad. So they are one in the same person, right? So I'm exchanging the word your brother with the Muhammad. So meaning if I remove your brother, it will still make sense. If I say I saw Muhammad, it is still the same person, right? So here, if we remove this part and we just say yawma, inna yawma yunfakhu, it is still we're talking about the same day. Okay, well, that's a concept. And badal has many different types. You have badal when you exchange the entire thing. Sometimes you can exchange with partial. It's a long discussion. I don't think we have to talk about this thing here now. فهمتم? So this is a badal. That's why it is. And the badal, the rule of the badal is just like atf, meaning it will always take the ruling of what it is exchanging. So because we have a fatha here because of the inna, which we talked about last time, he's taking the same grammatical state. Mansub. فهمتم? Now, so we'll go to the next verse. I think we'll only do 3 verses. This one and that next one, and then we'll be done. Because these 3 verses, the main topic is the mabni lil majhul, the passive form. So the next verse it says, وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. And the heaven shall be opened, and it will become as gates. And Abdul Halim, he says, when the skies will open up like wide portals. Now, so let's see what we understand. So we have wow and same wow. Now we have futihat. Futihat. Now, let me explain the ta first. Fataha. This verb comes from the verb fataha. Fataha. Fataha yaftahu. Yaftahu. So it comes from that verb. What is fataha? This is a very common verb. It is, yeah, this one is majhul. Yes, ahsanti. This is a majhul. But this is lil ma'loom. This is the standard verb. Fataha yaftahu means to what? To open. Okay, I'm pretty sure we studied, you studied this verb before. To open. And remember, one of the conjugation that we know from the past tense verb is that the ta. I told you the ta conjugation is very simple and very nice. When you say fatahat, when you put a sukun, it is she, right? When you put fatahta, fatha, it means you for masculine. When you say fatahti, it is you for feminine. And when you say fatah tu, it is I. If you understand this, the fourth ta, your past tense conjugation becomes so much easier. Okay, so you already know for conjugations. We'll come back to this one. Just keep this one in mind. We'll see what type of form this verb is. As sister pointed out, this is majhul. That means this is also passive form. We have futiha. So how do we make past tense verb into a passive form? Hmm? That is also pretty simple. If you just remember the rule, honestly, these are very simple stuffs. What we do here is, again, we don't touch the last haraka because it has to do with grammar. Here, we know the past tense is mabni. So the verb is fixed on fatha. So we cannot do anything about that. This is a fixed. And most of the time, what will happen is that we will make the first one into a dhamma. So one way you recognize a passive voice, mabni lil majhul, if you see a dhamma in the past tense or in the present tense, especially in the past tense. So in past tense, if you say a dhamma, by and large, it would be what? A passive form. So I'll just give you the rule. Rule is you make the last letter before the last. This one we don't touch. So you make the letter before the last one into a kasra. And any other haraka that you have, any other haraka. Here we only have one, but there are other verbs that has 4, 5, even 6. Any other haraka that you have, you will make it into a dhamma. Haraka. Remember, sukun is not a haraka. So you leave the sukun as it is. So if we follow our rules, so we put a kasra here and we make this one into dhamma, then we have futiha. That's what we have, futiha. Now we have this ta here. So we have to know what is this ta is. It has a kasra, ti. And you know that in the past tense, the ti means you for feminine. But when you have ti for feminine, it will sound like this. Okay, futihti. So it would be like this. We will have a sukun here. Okay, but we don't have a sukun here. We have futiha with the fatha. Actually, this verb form is that we have a sukun here. This is for she. This is for feminine version. But we have a kasra because I think I might have mentioned it. We have a sukun and two sukuns. We don't have two sukun side by side. So most of the time, we just give a kasra. So this kasra is not coming because of your pronoun. So it is actually, the verb is futihat. Now, another thing that you need to know about the passive form, let's say Muhammad opened the door. Remember, the open is a transitive verb. It needs object. Open the door. How do we translate this one in English, in Arabic? We say fataha. We say fataha Muhammadun. He's the doer, the subject. Then we say al-baba. Because this is object, so we put a fatha. Right? Now, this is a standard verb, mabni lil ma'lum. But if we want to make it into majhul, if we want to make it into passive, remember the reason why we're trying to make it into passive, because we don't want to mention who opened the door. So we get rid of Muhammad. And then we make the changes that we learned. So we say futiha. What happens here? Remember, al-bab, it was the object. That's why it had a fatha in our original statement. But once we remove the doer, the file, then this maful bihi, it has the fatha, right? So what's going to happen is that we will put a dhamma into the maful bihi. Because we remove the marfu, which was the file, now this one takes the role of the file. So that's why we call naibul file. What is naib? Naib means deputy, like someone who's taking the role, someone who is in the charge of something. So he is taking the charge of the file, because you cannot have a verb without the file. I think that is the best way to explain. A verb cannot be without a file. You need a doer. But if you remove the doer, so what happens? So what we do is we give this maful bihi the role of a file. So that's why it will take a dhamma. But in the reality, the bab is still the object. The door is not opening itself. The door is not doing the action. The door is still the object, but for the grammatical reason, in Arabic language, we put we put a dhamma, and then we don't call file anymore, or we also don't call maful bihi, we call naibul file. And naibul file will only come, of course, with mabni lil majhul for the passive form. Okay, fahimtum? So the reason why I'm saying all of this, because let's say it was not passive form. Let's say Allah saying that He opened, or the angel opened. Fatahallahu, what did Allah open? Allah opened as-sama. So here, the original way, this word should have been a fatha, because this is the object. That's what Allah opened. Okay? But because we remove the door, then this maful bihi becomes naibul file, and it gets a dhamma. So don't think that the heaven is the one who's doing the action, because this is a dhamma. Fahimtum? But now the question is, what happens is another tricky thing happens. These stuffs are pretty tricky. Uh, if here, look here, we said the Fatah Muhammad al-Bab, but if I say Fatah Muhammad al-Ghurfa, let's say he opened the room. Instead of Bab, we want to say Ghurfa, al-Ghurfa, al-Ghurfa. So it would be al-Ghurfata, right? Original, it would be Fataha Muhammadun al-Ghurfata. Muhammad opened the room. But in this case, if we remove Muhammad and we say Futiha, then we put a Dhamma, Futiha al-Ghurfatu, then we will have another problem. What is the problem here? Remember, this is taking the role of Naib, it is taking the role of file. So the file always matches the gender of what? Gender of the verb. Okay, so are you matching the gender of the verb? Here the word is feminine, but the verb is masculine. So if you're taking the role of file, well, you better do a good job. You're taking the role. So the role was for the file is that the gender of the file has to match the gender of the verb. So here you have to do the same. You cannot say futiha al-ghurfatu. You have to say futihat. Futihat. And same situation will happen because of alif lam. You will say futihatil ghurfatu. And that's why we have here, because as-sama, I think in the last class we talked about the word sama is considered feminine in Arabic language. So that's why we have futihat as-sama'u. So then we have fakanat abwaba. Again, we have the fa. And kana, we already talked about. This is one of the verb naqis from the nawasikh. And we mentioned all the things about kana in the last class. What is abwab? Abwab is plural of bab. Subhanallah, we just had the word bab, which is door. So abwab is the plural of bab. So doors. By the way, what is the ism kana here? What is the pronoun here? The pronoun is here. The pronoun is here is because this pronoun is still almost done. Both ways it will work. I'm thinking this here goes back to as-sama. For example, if we remove the kana, what's gonna happen? We are trying to say the sama, the skies is like its doors. So if we say here abwab, we say here abwabun. The here is going to as-sama. That the sama is like doors. So this ta is for the feminine, for the sama. This is what my understanding, right? But you're right. If we want to say that these are doors, then we will say here abwab also. Abwabun, that these are doors. The ghair aqil plural. Like when we have a plural of object, we treat as a singular feminine entity. Fahimtum? Another thing I have to mention here, because if you take the kana with the meaning that we know, the kana means is, here it's not going to make sense. You have to know, remember last time we studied kana wa akhawatuha. Sometimes a lot of the kana words like kana, sara, adha, amsa, they take the meaning of sara. Sara means to become, to become. So if I say asbahtu ghadiban or ana asbahtu mutaakhiran, that I become late. So here asbaha, it's coming as the meaning of to become. Asbaha also has another meaning, which means to be in a early in the morning. Okay, so but sometimes kana, asbaha, adha, they take the meaning of become, right? So here, if you take the meaning of kana that it is related to a sama, then you will make the meaning as that the skies, the heaven becomes the doors, so that the skies becomes doors. Here he put gateways, which is a very good translation actually, because when the skies has holes or it has doors, what we're saying is that we have a gateway of the next world, the akhirah, and with this world. So we have a gateway between the two realm. Okay, you can think about portal. I think he used the word portal. Okay, so these are all very good word to translate. So here we will not say the sky is or was, because that is the main meaning of kana. Kana means was. Okay. But here the meaning will be more like Sara, becomes. And this is very common in Arabic language. So we can say that when the skies were opened, then it becomes, meaning the sky becomes the gateways, meaning it becomes the doors, so that everything, the angels can come through. Makes sense? Subhanallah, I think I spent more time that I needed. And with this verse, inshallah, I will wrap up. And you can see the subhanallah, the visual that Allah is giving here. It's very amazing. If you just ponder about on these verses, it is amazing. And especially with the next verse. Oh, by the way, we did not talk about the fa. The fa here, it can be, fa has a lot of different meaning. It can be so, it can also be then. It can also be then. You can think about Allah opened the heavens, so it becomes gateway, or you can also translate as then. But if you translate as then, it has a little bit significant, because last time we talked about we have two words for then. We have thumma, and we have fa. Thumma has a little bit of delay. When you use the word thumma, then we are saying whatever you did, there was some sort of time between this one, then the other one. I ate lunch, then I went to work. So it's not like you ate lunch and you just ran off. But if I say I ate lunch, then I say فَذَهَبْتُ إِلَى عَمَلِي, then I'm saying that I ate lunch, and as soon as I finished my lunch, then I went to work quickly. So the fa has a very direct, like quick action. So if you translate the fa here as a then you get a different sorts of meaning. That as soon as the sky was open, it become like a gateway. So that means door opened up and angels are coming or whatever is happening. فهمتم? No. Then we have was سُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. We'll just go directly into word for word because of the time. So the verb is, again, this is also mabni lil majhul, but the verb comes from the word Sara. Sara yasiru. Yasiru. Sara means to move, to move, to march, to go. It has the same meaning. Almost similar like a dhahaba, but has a little bit of moving. In the dhahaba we say to go, but Sara it is to move or to march. But the form that we have, this is the verb form 1. Remember, we've been talking about the verb forms, but the form that we have here, it is the form number 2 of this verb, which is sayyara. Sayyara. So what this form does, I think I also mentioned this one last time when I was talking about form number 4, af'ala, that it makes into a transitive. This form also does the same thing. This form has other usage, but one of the usage is that it makes the form number 1 into a transitive verb. So when you say Sara Muhammad, that means Muhammad moved. But when you say Sayyara, then you have to say Muhammadan. That means somebody moved Muhammad. He moved Muhammad. So I can say Sayyara Muhammadun Hamidan or Sayyara Muhammadun something else. You understand? So the verb becomes transitive. So that's the verb that we have. And because of the mabni nil majhul, the thing that I explained to you, we have suyirat. It's the same rules. Okay, it's the same rule. So we make the before the last letter, we make a kasra, and everything else we put a dhamma. So we have suyirat. So that means it was moved. And who's moving? Allah is not mentioning it here. Allah is doing everything, right? So, but this is the style that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using here. And so what was moved? Al-jibal. We already had the word jibal. Jibal is plural of jabal, which is a mountain. And then now, as you can see, what sister was pointing out, why do we have suyirat? Why do we have a feminine version of this verb? Because the jibal, plural of an object, are considered feminine. And I told you, initially, this jibal was a maful bihi, that Allah moved the mountains. The original statement was, for example, Sayyarallahu al-jibala. But because it's mabni nil majhul, we have to make this one into a dhamma. So this is the naibul fa'il. And naibul fa'il is here we consider feminine because of broken plural. So the verb has to be feminine as well. So we say suyiratil jibalu fakanat, same thing, same concept. So I'm not going to spend so much time. Fakanat saraba. So what is sarab? Hmm? Sarab is very interesting word. Good translation would be mirage. Yeah, mirage. So you know what mirage is. It's very interesting visual phenomenon that you see, especially in the desert. The mirage. It's very difficult to explain. Distorted image. You think something is there, but it's not. Right? So what is Allah is describing here is that the mountains will be moved. In some of the tafsir, they say it will be moved. When it is moved, it will become like dust particles. The mountain will be crushed as it's being moved into dust particle, and then it will be like a mirage. Okay, so you will see something, you will see the mountains, but it will be like that type of visual. And some other scholars say that, it will appear to you is that there's some water, but there is no water because usually the water reflection gives us this type of a mirage. If you have a mirage in the desert, when somebody sees a mirage, they know there's a water somewhere. So they'll look toward that direction. So in this situation, they will think there's some type of water. They'll go toward that direction, but there won't be any water. So this is another explanation. So as you can see, subhanallah, the way Allah is using this tone, these words, these grammatical elements, the morphology, and the visual that is Allah is trying to give us, if we just read, and if that's what Allah says, Allah always asks us to do a tatabbur, like, we should be thinking, pondering on these verses. So, I know there's a lot of different group of students here. Some people are advanced, some people are intermediate, some of you are beginner. But for the beginner student, as I said, someone was, telling me that it's a little bit difficult, and I completely agree with you because we're covering lots of different topic, left and right. But if you at least appreciate and get the deeper meaning, I think inshallah this will be beneficial. Believe it or not, when you just read Quran, even if you know Arabic without thinking, you will not get this type of sense, connection of with the Quran. It only comes when you analyze the words, the grammars, and do a little bit of thinking. Tom, makes sense, guys? Yes, 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 no, maybe. So I'll just quickly mention here that look, subhanallah, this surah has so many different grammar topics. I don't know if you have this PDF I posted in the Telegram group. There's so many topics, subhanallah. This one surah, and I'm pretty sure I've missed a lot of them here. So I think we've covered many of these already. I think, and I organized them based on the verses when we will be introduced to the topic. So I think this is where we are. And I also talked about the fa here. Okay. And I think we also talked about the verb gender agreement with the broken plural, right? So inshallah, we have many more interesting, grammar topics coming up as we move forward.